Joining me now to discuss is Mark Dubowitz, CEO of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Mark, welcome to the program. So I was going to begin just there, where it's largely expected that Donald Trump will resume his maximum pressure policy. That's only reinforced by the security team and foreign policy team that he's assembled. But just this week, the New York Times is reporting that Elon Musk met with Iran's ambassador to the UN in New York last week on ways to diffuse tensions between the two. What do you make of that?
So, Bianca, thanks for having me on the show. I think President Trump is very concerned that during the lame duck period between the election and January 20th, when he takes office, that Iran may move to develop at least a crude nuclear device and establish itself as a nuclear weapons power. So I think there's an attempt now to diffuse tensions and try to suggest to the Iranians that there is a pathway for diplomacy and a potential nuclear deal, but also if they continue to defy the United States and the international community, that maximum pressure is on its way.
Right, because Trump withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal in his first term, and international monitors say that Iran has only come that much closer to being capable of developing a nuclear weapon in its nuclear program. Interesting to note, Axios was reporting that Israel, during its retaliatory strike in late October, actually destroyed an active top-secret nuclear weapons research facility. This according to 3 U.S. officials and an Israeli official as well. You're in Israel right now. What more can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I mean, first, what's important to understand that most of Iran's nuclear expansion, including this weaponization work, occurred under President Biden's watch because I think the Iranians understood that there was really no consequences if they were to expand their nuclear program. This site is a very sensitive site called Parchin. It's known to international inspectors, and it seems as if Iran is engaged in at least an initial weaponization work, which is a blockbuster revelation because the U.S. intelligence community since 2007 their consensus view is that Iran never engaged in weaponization work. And certainly the Israelis have discovered that indeed is not true and bombed the site. And Iran has denied ever engaging in weaponization work. So certainly the Israelis did not defy President Biden's command to them not to touch nuclear sites.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has been very transparent that Israel will not allow for Iran to develop a bomb. But how do you envision a Trump administration in response to that if Iran is able to attain a bomb?
Well, I think it sounds like the Trump administration has made it very clear, and President-elect himself, that they will do everything to support Israel, for the Israeli military to use military force to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. I think he said that he immediately is going to green light all of the weapon systems and ammunition that have been delayed in the past number of months, and so that all will be expedited, and as well give the Israelis the kind of perhaps massive ordnance penetrators and strategic systems that they need to really destroy Iran's deeply buried enrichment facilities.
Would the U.S. itself be involved militarily, though?
Well, it's certainly U.S. presidents since President Clinton have committed to use all instruments of national power to prevent Iran from acquiring or developing nuclear weapons. President Biden made that written declaration in 2022, and President Trump has made it clear that he'll do everything in his power to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. So multiple U.S. presidents have committed to this. All instruments of national power certainly imply a military power. But I think there is some skepticism here in Israel that the United States will actually do that directly, and instead will just provide Israel with everything Israel needs in order for Israel to do it.
Yeah, that skepticism only reinforced by some comments recently made by J.D. Vance, who said it would not be U.S. policy to engage in war with Iran. Trump's signature Mideast achievement in his first term was the Abraham Accords. President Biden, of course, tried to expand that to include Saudi Arabia. That was upended after the October 7th attacks and then the subsequent war in Gaza. Interesting to note that MBS just this week called that war a genocide. How can a Trump administration attempt to revive what's being dubbed Abraham 2.0?
Look, I think they were certainly in Riyadh. They were probably high-fiving in the royal court on election night with President Trump coming back in. I think the Saudis believe that the Trump administration will have their back in the confrontation that Riyadh is engaged in with Iran. So I think there'll be, with that kind of U.S. assurance, I think it'll be more likely that MBS will move towards not only a security agreement and a defense agreement with the United States, but normalization with Israel. It certainly doesn't help for MBS to be making the false claim that Israel is engaged in genocide. I think there are a lot of pro-Israel supporters in Washington very upset by those comments, and I know MBS certainly has a number of priorities, including security and defense treaties, a huge AI treaty that he's negotiating with the Biden administration. I think those comments are going to undermine support for the Saudis in Washington. So he's going to need to make a bold move on the normalization front with Israel and cool the rhetoric. I think that's probably an important message that the Trump administration will be sending to Riyadh in the coming days and months.
Yeah, and of course, there are many in the region that hope that President Trump could convince Prime Minister Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire hostage deal as well. Mark Dubowitz, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bianna. Appreciate it.